and decided to have it be a little bit intro. Hopefully I won't get DMCA'd for that. Well, we'll see. Don't tell anyone, please. Don't tell them I did that. Oh shit, community challenge started. If you got them channel points, you didn't spend them all on stupid polls that I made while we were streaming, please boost the stream by giving you points. Right now, your channel rewards you'll rack up. Also, thank you, Discount Seth Rogen, for the 67 biddies. And thank you, Abby, for the 2,000 contributed to the boost stream. Oh, and thank you, Marcus. Welcome, my friend. All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to get down to business today. And we're going to talk about, some of you watching probably weren't even alive in 2008 when this crash happened. I'm 112 years old. So I get to make it seem like you guys are infants compared to me. Here, let me get some gray for you guys to look at. Let me get a little gray out so I can have some gravitas, a touch of class here. But when the financial crash happened, many people would tell you, no one could have foreseen this. It was just this terrible thing that happened that was just like no one understood that the markets could do this. That we thought everything was grand. We thought that all of the debt was allocated evenly, the risk was shared, and there was like gremlins in the machines that just started chewing on wires that caused the whole market to come down. And of course, anyone with any remote critique of the financial sector knows that's not the case. Oh damn, Revolver also thought with the tier 1 sub gifted to Conway Realty. Thank you, Revolver also thought. I appreciate you. And 1,000 Boof coming in hot with 1,000 biddies. Welcome, Boof. Thank you, patron saint of Left Flank Vets and all of Left Twitch as well. Drop them Boof, that Boof emote if you got it. If you're a subby, you got a Boof emote. We appreciate you here, Boof. All right, so we're gonna go, and of course this fucking screen is messed up already. Stand by 1 second. We're gonna watch a short video of Mr. Bernie Sanders speaking in 1999. Now, you might be thinking, Dick, 1999 is not 2008. Well, you're right. You would be right about that. But Bernie Sanders had some prescient things to say about what was going to happen in 2008. And we're going to watch it right now. Get ready, nerds.
Increasing bank fees, increasing
We're going to go back to the beginning. Here we go.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this bill. I support financial...
Just as a preview, as it says in the bottom here, Bernie Sanders on the big banks and repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act. So Bernie Sanders is speaking in opposition to the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act in 1999. The Glass-Steagall had been around for more than 60 years. It was passed in 1933 after the Great Depression. And Bernie's going to tell us now why we shouldn't repeal it at that time.
Modernization, if modernization means more choices for consumers, more competition, greater safety and soundness, stopping unfair bank fees, and protecting consumers and underserved communities. But, Madam Speaker, I believe this legislation in its current form will do more harm than good. It will lead to fewer banks and financial service providers, increased charges and fees for individual consumers and small businesses, diminished credit for rural America, and taxpayer exposure to potential losses should a financial conglomerate fail. It will lead to more mega mergers, a small number of corporations dominating the financial service industry, and further concentration of economic power in this country.
Okay, we're just going to go back real quick. We're just listen to that part again.
To potential losses should a financial conglomerate for rural America, and taxpayer exposure to potential losses should a financial conglomerate fail. It will lead to more mega mergers, a small number of corporations dominating the financial service industry, and further concentration of economic power in this country. It is no secret, Madam Speaker, that bigger financial institutions lead to bigger fees, which totaled more than $18 billion last year. The U.S. Public Interest Research Group and the Federal Reserve Bank have conducted studies and confirmed that bigger banks charge larger fees. And there is no question in my mind that if this bill is passed, that process will be accelerated.
Also, that's where they make most of their money. They make a shit ton of money off fucking you over, off allowing you to overdraft your account, and then charging you fees for doing so.
This bill is, in fact, however, good for big banks. But the big banks are doing just fine without this bill. Government-insured banks earned a record $18 billion in just the first 3 months of this year, $2.1 billion more than they earned in the same period last year. At a time of increasing bank fees, increasing ATM surcharges, increasing credit card fees, increasing minimum balance requirements, it is time for the Congress to stand up for the consumers. The big banks are doing fine. Let's protect the consumers. Let's vote no on this legislation.
Gentleman's time has
So, what Bernie just said was, if you repeal Glass-Steagall, some of this shit's going to happen. Some bad shit's going to happen. We are going to see banks merge that shouldn't merge. We're going to see them over leverage themselves. And what will end up happening is the consumer, the average consumer who keeps their money in those banks, the average consumer whose retirement is tied up in those banks' obligations, they will bear the brunt of that cost, not the bank itself, if you repeal this act. And all that ended up happening. So, yeah, only normies were paying attention to the economy in 2008. U.S. Sigma male 8-year-olds were too concerned with Kung Fu Panda, The Dark Knight, Indiana Jones, Crystal Skull, and Madagascar 2, and fucking Wall-E to care about other shit. God, a lot of pop culture references tied up in that there, discount Seth Rogen. You're right. I was getting ready to go to Afghanistan in 2008. I was a young, dumb 20-year-old in 2008. Getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan a year later. I didn't give a fuck about any of this. I didn't understand what was happening. I had a steady paycheck coming from the U.S. militaries. It was a blip on my radar. I didn't watch the news. I didn't care about politics. I cared about playing Call of Duty, getting drunk, chasing tail, and wondering if I was going to be dead when I went to Afghanistan soon. Which was, I mean, to be fair, what most 20-year-olds are worrying about at any given time, except for the dying in Afghanistan part. But Bernie's talking about the repeal of Glass-Steagall and how its removal will end up causing all of these horribly negative downstream effects, right, to average Americans. Bernie's all about protecting the average consumer as best he can under the crushing weight of capitalism, and being the lone voice of opposition on things like this for financial services committees in 1999. So what had happened was Glass-Steagall was passed in 1933. Now, I could get into a complicated explanation of it, but I don't need to, because the basic explanation of it is it helped protect your money that you put in the bank from the bank using it to gamble with. Because if you don't know, when you put money in the bank now, wherever you have your savings, your checking and stuff like that, the bank does not just put your money in a safe and let it sit there. They go gamble it on ridiculous financial instruments that are pulled straight out of brokers' asses, right? Ooh, thank you for the Smedley Butler was right. 3-month prime. That's what's up. Currently on a 1-month streak, but 3 months total. Appreciate you, Smedley Butler was right. Thank you for the prime. If you got some Bezos bucks to throw our way, we much appreciate it. So, I'm actually, my alerts are off. I'm going to turn those back on. I can hear some alerts so I don't miss any money doing some donos or some shit like that. So Glass-Steagall was made to protect the protect
I
the
know
average
you're
consumer.
hoping and praying that maybe we'll have another war, but it ain't happening.
Glass-Steagall is basically a firewall, says I Fight for Them. Exactly. It's a firewall between your money and sitting in the bank protected and all the crazy betting that they did, right? So when you have that firewall, what it does is it prevents the bank from, it makes them be more careful because they don't have as much liquidity to be able to actually, they don't have as much money to gamble with, right? And Glass-Steagall help regulate how much they could gamble, right? So what happens in a financial crisis is what often happens is people are gambling with money they do not have, which anyone who's ever seen, a movie that the crux of the plot is you got to pay a loan shark back or you're going to get killed or get your legs broken, right? Like that's the issue that person has, right? This person bet a shit ton of money on the wrong racehorse and now they're going to end up dead for it because it was money they didn't have. Banks do that all the time. It's called leverage ratios. So a leverage ratio is basically meaning if a bank has $100,000, but they have $200,000 of bets out there, meaning if they were to lose every bet they made, they'd have to pay $200K back. Then that's a 2-to-1 leverage ratio. They have twice the amount of money gambled as they actually have in the bank. Now those leverage ratios used to be protected. They used to be limited, so that a bank could make massive gambles, and even the bigger the gamble too, the smaller the amount of loss that you have to incur in order to become insolvent. Insolvent meaning you don't have enough money literally in the bank to cover the losses, right? So let's say a certain market goes under, and your 16-to-1 leverage ratio, only 1/16 of your wealth that you have only 1/16 of the total gamble that you have would have to fail in order for you to have no money to pay everything back. And you are then bankrupt as a financial institution. Yeah, it used to be limited 10-to-1. But basically after Glass-Steagall, all that shit went out the window. The firewall between the actual money that you put in the bank to be saved and the way that they could exercise financial instruments to gamble upon that shit allowed that firewall to be broken down. They could do whatever they wanted. And everything Bernie said was going to happen happened. Big mergers resulted, and there was a ton of risk. They got riskier, and the brunt of the impact when the bottom inevitably fell on the average consumer. That was what the government was doing while I was in Iraq. Yes, lonesome government. Exactly. Yes, Glass-Steagall allowed thank you for English, used to be 10-to-1, but repeal of Glass-Steagall allowed them to go much, much higher than that. I'm talking about 2008, Sashi. You are right. I'm sorry for his childhood trauma. I'm sure that there's a lot of people in here right now who felt the effects of 2008. My dad's retirement got wiped out in 2008. Basically everything he had saved. Like I said, I wasn't affected by it because I was already in the military. I had a stable government job doing imperialism. Good stuff. My military enlistment due to losing my construction career was a subsidy to cover bank losses. Huh. Yes, exactly. My repressed late 20s trauma. Looming foreclosure, go Burr. All right, so now we're going to go through some of the individual aspects of the financial crisis, but let's get an overview first. There's this great little video called The Crisis of Credit Visualized. It's about 11 minutes long. We'll pause it as we go, but it's going to help you understand some of the exact financial instruments, how they're tied together, and how it led to the crash. And you'll see all of the points where it could have been prevented. All of the points where it was obvious that people were making something out of nothing and gambling money they didn't have repeatedly over and over again. Gambles on gambles on gambles. So let's watch that.
The Crisis of Credit Visualized. What is the credit crisis? It's a worldwide financial fiasco involving terms you've probably heard like subprime mortgages, collateralized debt obligations, frozen credit markets, and credit default swaps. Who's affected? Everyone. How did it happen? Here's how. The credit crisis brings two groups of people together, homeowners and investors. Homeowners represent their mortgages, and investors represent their money. These mortgages represent houses, and this money represents large institutions like pension funds, insurance companies, sovereign funds, mutual funds, etc. These groups are brought together through the financial system, a bunch of banks and brokers commonly known as Wall Street. While it may not seem like it, these banks on Wall Street are closely connected to these houses on Main Street. To understand how, let's start at the beginning. Years ago, the investors are sitting on their pile of money, looking for a good investment to turn into more money. Traditionally, they go to the U.S. Federal Reserve, where they buy treasury bills, believed to be the safest investment. But in the wake of the dot-com bust in September 11th, Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan lowers interest rates to only 1% to keep the economy strong. 1% is a very low return on investment, so the investors say, no thanks. On the flip side, this means banks on Wall Street can borrow from the Fed for only 1%. Add to that general surpluses from Japan, China, and the Middle East, and there's an abundance of cheap credit. This makes borrowing money easy for banks and causes them to go crazy with leverage. Leverage is borrowing money to amplify the outcome of a deal. Here's how it works. In a normal deal, someone with $10,000 buys a box for $10,000. He then sells it to someone else for $11,000. For a $1,000 profit, a good deal. But using leverage, someone with $10,000 would go borrow $990,000 more dollars, giving him $1 million in hand. Then he goes and buys 100 boxes with his $1 million and sells them to someone else for $1,100,000. Then he pays back his $990,000 plus $10,000 in interest. And after his initial $10,000, he's left with a $90,000 profit versus the other guy's $1,000. Leverage turns good deals into great deals. This is a major way banks make their money. So Wall Street takes out a ton of credit, makes great deals, and grows tremendously rich.
Yeah, that's also what happened in the Great Depression, 29. Yes, you're right, Sasha.
The investors see this and want a piece of the action, and this gives Wall Street an idea. They can connect the investors to the homeowners through mortgages. Here's how it works.
Now, actually, what we're going to do here, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to switch to another video, which I can't remember how in-depth they cover it here, but there's a very good video from as preparation for this stream. I watched Inside Job, which is a 2010 documentary narrated by Matt Damon. It's very good. It's one of the ways I became familiar with the financial crisis at all and how it went down after I got out of the military. And it really helped put in perspective for me. So let's talk about how mortgages work in this short video and what a collateralized debt obligation, or a CDO, is when it comes to mortgages.
In the old system, when a homeowner paid their mortgage every month,
all kinds of
the money went to their local lender. And since
these will help us understand through visuals. Like, me just explaining it out loud is not going to be nearly as effective for folks who I learn better visually. So that's why this helps me understand it. I hope it helps some of you too. And it's better than just listening to me fucking talk at you. No one wants that.
Mortgages took decades to repay, lenders were careful. In the new system, lenders sold the mortgages to investment banks. The investment banks combined thousands of mortgages and other loans, including car loans, student loans, and credit card debt to create complex derivatives called collateralized debt obligations, or CDOs. The investment banks then sold the CDOs to investors. Now, when homeowners paid their mortgages, the money went to investors all over the world. The investment banks paid rating agencies to evaluate the CDOs.
There's an important point here too, is that once your local lender no longer, like, I like to think of this in terms of the It's a Wonderful Life, right? Like the local bank that owes all that money to the local individuals that that Jimmy Stewart works for. Like the local banker is the guy. You can literally go to that banker and say, listen, I don't have, I wasn't able to sell my crop this month, so I can't pay you the mortgage I have on the farm right now, but can you give me a break for another month? And they can decide if they have that, they can undertake that risk and and do without that profit or that payment for that month, right? And then as the modern era comes about in the 20th century, the piece of paper that says I own your house according to this debt obligation is no longer held by your local bank. It is sold and packaged and thrown throughout the world, to the point where there have been instances since 2008 where people have been like, show me on a piece of paper where it says you own my house. Tell me who owns it. And the debt has changed hands so many times that people have had trouble actually locating the document that says that JP Morgan Chase or AIG or whoever might own the house at the time actually owns it. It's often difficult for them to even provide the documentation because it is in the ether of ones and zeros. It's fucking lost in the matrix.
And many of them were given a AAA rating, which is the highest possible investment grade. This made CDOs popular with retirement funds, which could only purchase highly rated securities. This system was a ticking time bomb. Lenders didn't care anymore about whether a borrower could repay.
Important point there. The rating agencies, the ratings that were given by the rating agencies, allowed for retirement funds to invest in them. A high rating by the rating agency should mean that is a sound and safe investment, that it has sound funding principles, that there is checks and balances in place to make sure that the debts can be repaid on a basic level. But the movie covers in other segments about how the rating agencies literally are paid by the financial firms themselves to write the glowing reviews. It's the literal like fox grading the hen house. The fox is in the hen house selecting which hens to eat. That's how the rating agencies work. Standard & Poor's and Moody's. Their ratings are complete bullshit. In fact, before Congress, they argued our ratings are just opinions. You shouldn't make financial decisions based on them. But it would actually be, that doesn't work when a retirement fund relies upon those ratings to know what a sound investment is. It's the only metric by which they were allowed to judge. It was the only check and balance in place. But the check and balance itself was deeply, deeply corrupted. Do you see how this starts to spin out of control here?
So they started making riskier loans. The investment banks didn't care either. The more CDOs they sold, the higher their profits. And the rating agencies, which were paid by the investment banks,
Riviera,
had no liability if their ratings of CDOs proved wrong. There was another ticking time bomb in the financial system. AIG, the world's largest insurance company, was selling huge quantities of derivatives called credit default swaps.
Ooh, now it gets even more spicy. You ready?
For investors who owned CDOs, credit default swap.
So remember, CDOs are collateralized debt obligations. This is a big package of like mortgages, student loans, and other things. A fucking ice-chewing psychopath banker took all of this debt that people owed, smashed it together, and made it into a blob of debt that they would sell to someone else and be like, hey, listen, these people are going to pay all this money back someday, so I'm going to sell it to you, and you'll pay me for the right for me to sell you this debt, and you can make money off of it. And this was supposed to actually be safer this way. If I collateralize all the debt, even if one person can't pay, then the other people will pay, right? It's supposed to actually spread the risk out, which sounds good in principle, but that would presuppose that every one of those debts wasn't deeply, deeply defrauded and predatory, meaning if you collateralize a whole bunch of debt together that was predatory to begin with, meaning that you sold it to people who you knew couldn't pay it back for short-term gains because you wanted to fucking buy a Lambo or cocaine or a hooker like you're some Wall Street psycho, then the collateralized debt doesn't really spread the risk out, does it? It's actually just a ball of fire. It's a ball of fucking gasoline. You're just waiting for a spark. So now we're going to talk about how they tried to prevent the collateralized debt obligations from having to cause a crisis through something called a credit default swap, a derivative.
Worked like an insurance policy. An investor who purchased a credit default swap paid AIG a quarterly premium. If the CDO went bad, AIG promised to pay the investor for their losses.
Oh, good. See? Well, even if, so the CDO is all this collateralized debt spread out, all this risk is spread out, but let's say I get fucked. Let's say all these people can't pay it back. I better buy some insurance from AIG to make sure that I can get that paid back, that we are covered. The investors' asses are covered, making this even more safe of a bet. Sounds great, right? What could go wrong?
But unlike regular insurance, speculators could also buy credit default swaps from AIG in order to bet against CDOs they didn't own. Since credit default swaps were unregulated, AIG didn't have to put aside any money to cover potential losses.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. So, AIG sold credit default. AIG, here, I'm going to circle my hand, sold insurance policies to investors on the debt that they owned to say, if this debt doesn't pay out, I will pay you the money that you were supposed to get from this debt obligation. That way there's no risk to you. Now, credit default swaps, those insurance policies, which are a financial instrument called derivatives, which is like a fucking form of calculus algorithm to determine what the insurance liability risk is. They sold those insurance policies to speculators, meaning that you could bet against these collateralized debt obligations even if you didn't own them. So the idea behind the swap originally was, I'm going to buy insurance on my debt. But what if someone else was like, I don't think that's a good investment right there. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy an insurance policy betting that you're going to fail, that no one's going to pay you back. And because this form of financial instrument, derivatives, credit default swap derivatives, was unregulated, AIG didn't have to have the money to cover that for the speculators. There was nothing saying that AIG had to have all the money in the bank that they may have to pay out if these debts didn't get paid. So what is the point of an insurance policy if it can't be paid out, if that company isn't liquid enough to actually pay you?
Instead, AIG paid its employees huge cash bonuses as soon as contracts were signed.
You don't say.
But if the CDOs later went bad, AIG would be on the hook.
You don't say. So, in summation there, the reason I stopped the Crisis of Credit Visualized video to watch that one was I wanted to cover exactly how mortgages went from you going to your local Jimmy Stewart banker and saying, I need $10,000 to make sure that the farm, I can buy seed and fuel for my tractor to get the fucking crop out this year and sell it back. And then what I'll do is pay you back. And then you working on an agreement with that individual banker, with that individual institution on how that debt would work, how your obligations would work. And it actually existing within a community. What ended up happening was those debts were packaged, sold off to financial security firms who had no vested interest in those communities only were invested in making the money on them. They purchased insurance policies against them for debts they knew they couldn't pay back, and then further investors bet against those debts with institutions that couldn't pay either of them back. So all along the chain, every rung of this ladder, you had people who knew that these debts might not be able to be paid out and were just hoping that they would be the one not left holding the bag, that they would be the one that had the money in the end. Now, what does that sound like to you? What is the shape that I might be describing that we're creating here? Yeah, exactly. It's a fucking pyramid scheme. It's a fucking pyramid scheme. This is supposed to be safe investments. This is a whole idea of the American dream is built on mortgages, on owning a home. But we created a pyramid scheme to prop it up. You're picking a poke. Yeah, exactly.
Wants a house, so they save for a down payment and contact a mortgage broker. The mortgage broker connects the family to a lender who gives them a mortgage. The broker makes a nice commission. The family buys a house and becomes homeowners. This is great for them because housing prices have been rising practically forever. Everything works out nicely. One day, the lender gets a call from an investment banker who wants to buy.
I'm not even switched over. God damn it. I'm not even showing my screen. Why didn't you guys tell me? What the hell?
Buy the mortgage. The lender sells it to him for a very nice fee. The investment banker then borrows millions of dollars and buys thousands more mortgages and puts them into a nice little box. This means that every month he gets the payments from the homeowners of all the mortgages in the box.
A CDO.
Then he sicks his banker wizards on it to work their financial magic, which is basically cutting it into 3 slices: safe, okay, and risky. They pack the slices back up in the box and call it a collateralized debt obligation, or CDO. A CDO works like 3 cascading trays. As money comes in, the top tray fills first, then spills over into the middle, and whatever is left into the bottom. The money comes from homeowners paying off their mortgages. If some owners don't pay and default on their mortgage, less money comes in, and the bottom tray may not get filled. This makes the bottom tray riskier and the top tray safer. To compensate for the higher risk, the bottom tray receives a higher rate of return, while the top receives a lower, but still nice return. To make the top even safer, banks will insure it for a small fee called a credit default swap. The banks do all of this work so that credit rating agencies will stamp the top slice as a safe, AAA rated investment, the highest, safest rating there is. The OK slice is BBB, still pretty good, and they don't bother to rate the risky slice. Because of the AAA rating, the investment banker can sell the safe slice to the investors who only want safe investments. He sells the OK slice to other bankers,
right,
and the risky slices to hedge funds and other risk takers. The investment banker makes millions. He then repays his loans. Finally, the investors have found a good investment for their money, much better than the 1% Treasury bills. They're so pleased they want more CDO slices. So the investment banker calls up the lender, wanting more mortgages. The lender calls up the broker for more homeowners, but the broker can't find anyone. Everyone that qualifies for a mortgage already has one.
What will they do?
But they have an idea.
Wait. I'm going to guess. Their idea is, listen, everyone who qualifies for a mortgage is currently getting one. It would be risky for us to undertake more risk by allowing more people to get mortgages that likely can't afford them. So we should probably just stop it here. I can't sell you more mortgages so you can create your fancy financial instruments that make these investors a ton of money. I'm going to guess that's what they're going to do.
When homeowners default on their mortgage, the lender gets the house, and houses are always increasing in value. Since they're covered if the homeowners default, lenders can start adding risk to new mortgages, not requiring down payments, no proof of income, no documents at all. And that's exactly what they did. So instead of lending to responsible homeowners, called prime mortgages, they started to get some that were, well, less responsible. These are subprime mortgages. This is the turning point. So, just like always, the mortgage broker
So just to recap real quick. What they actually did was the opposite of what I said maybe they should have done, of course, which is when there was pressure from investors at the top to say, we're making a shit ton of money off these collateralized debt obligations. We'd like to make more money. We have more money than we know what to do with. Please create more of these instruments that are just fucking printing money, right? It's free money. It's free real estate. It's right there. Come on. Give out more real estate. It will make more money. It's as simple as that, right? So mortgages existed at a certain rate and were a safe investment because those families had incomes that could support the mortgage payments. And so they created something called a subprime mortgage payment so they could create more of these fancy financial instruments. Yeah, this is a gross animation. Yeah, it's like, look at these nasty trailer trash people who smoke and drink and have lots of babies. Yeah, this is some classist shit in this animation. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. It's like, how can we represent poor people? Look at how much they suck. They have babies and smoke cigarettes.
the family with a lender and a mortgage, making his commission. The family buys a big house. The lender sells the mortgage to the investment banker.
These people are subprime, as you can see from their subprime babies and subprime cigarettes. They are disgusting. They shouldn't have sold them houses. It's these people's fault. If you really think about it, it's their fault. If they hadn't spent all that money on cigarettes and boozes, this never would have happened. Never would have happened. It's their fault.
Turns it into a CDO and sells slices to the investors and others. This actually works out nicely for everyone and makes them all rich.
But once again, remember, these three-tiered system in the CDO, safe, okay, and risky. Remember how that is determined to begin with. So not only were subprime mortgages like an issue because people of lower income could not pay the mortgages that they were undertaking because pressure from investors were like, pressure from mortgage lenders were like, hey, actually you can't afford this. I actually just need a verbal confirmation that you make enough money to do this. I don't actually need to see any pay statements, or maybe I don't even ask. Maybe I don't even bother asking. Not only is that the case, but prior to that, these ratings effectively meant nothing. By the rating agency's own declaration, sworn testimony in Congress, their ratings are just opinions. They don't have to be based on literally anything. They are mostly based upon how they're compensated by the financial institutions themselves, who they are supposed to be regulating. Not regulating, but rating. They're supposed to be assessing and evaluating the financial instruments of the people who are paying them. So this safe, okay, and risky tier system doesn't actually mean anything to begin with.
No one was worried because as soon as they sold the mortgage to the next guy, it was his problem. If the homeowners were to default, they didn't care. They were selling off their risk to the next guy and making millions, like playing hot potato with a time bomb. Not surprisingly, the homeowners default on their mortgage, which at this moment is owned by the banker. This means he forecloses and one of his monthly payments turns into a house. No big deal. He puts it up for sale. But more and more of his monthly payments turn into houses. Now there are
I should stop here too. This video, I don't believe, covers this on this part. But right at this point where this is happening, where people are defaulting on these houses, I want to make it clear too. Like another way that this is actually classist is these people entered into mortgages where they were told by a mortgage lender, listen, this is what's called an adjustable rate mortgage. On average, we can determine that your payment will probably be around $2,000, $2,500 a month for your mortgage, right? Can you afford that? And they'll be like, yeah, we can swing that. I mean, it's a little steep. Like, we didn't think we were going to be able to afford a home yet. We're not making all that much money, but between $2,000, $2,500 a month, yeah, we can afford that. And they said, cool, that'll be the average. Go ahead and sign here. It's a document that's about this thick, describing how the rate is adjusted. Meaning the rate that you will have to pay, you'll be responsible for monthly, right? So you rely upon this mortgage lender to explain it to you, because by the mortgage lenders and like literal Harvard mathematicians' own testimonies and interviews, they said, I have a degree in advanced mathematics and I would have trouble determining exactly what the adjustable rate would be month to month for this person. Like not just determining it, but understanding how it's even calculated, because the adjustable rates were defined by derivatives. This is advanced algorithms that help determine exactly how much the rate should be paid for that house based on risk within the market, right? So these people didn't enter into mortgages that they were like, there's no way I can ever pay this, but I want a house, so I'm going to take it. These weren't greedy, poor people who got their little money-grubbing hands together and decided, you know what, I'm going to take a house because I can, has, and I want. No, they thought they were entering into a contract that they could afford. But they were fucking had by these fucking psychopaths who told them this is how much your payment will be. And what it ended up being was almost twice as much often. Because as people defaulted, risk increased in the market and the adjustable rates went up. So unless you were a Harvard mathematician, and even if you had a fucking degree from MIT, you probably wouldn't be able to determine what your monthly mortgage payment was. Now imagine that. Imagine where this is what happened with Texas heating prices right now. Yes, exactly. We live in the same world. This isn't over with. This isn't over with at all. We're still in speculative derivatives bubble. You are absolutely right, Franglish. Our systems are made to extract wealth. And what we're told is that it's too complicated for you to understand. There's a black box effect here, right? There's an algorithm here. I need you to trust that all the very smart people at Harvard Business School, at MIT, all the physicists and fucking big-brained weirdos, psychos out there who put this little black box together to help keep the market nice and even, you need to trust them. You need to trust those experts. When all they've done is create a machine that is very good for getting money from your pocket and into people who don't need it. That is how the system works. That's how an adjustable rate mortgage worked. All of these fuckers who sold these people this shit knew that this could happen and probably would happen. And they did it anyways, because they knew it would be effective in extracting this wealth from them, people who had hopes of improving their position, knowing that buying a house was one of the best ways to do that. The equity that you could take from a house is one of the biggest social, the most effective instruments of social mobility that we have in this country. It's part of the American dream. You buy a starter house, you fix it up, you wait for the market to go up, you sell it, you buy a bigger, better house. And in the same time, you get a nice stable job and you're getting promoted at the dick sucking factory. You're promoted to head dick sucker and now you're able to afford bigger, better house. But that's not actually how it works, is it? Because we are created a system which inevitably there are psychopaths who tell the psychopaths in Congress, here's how we create a black box psycho instrument to help create more money in the system, more surplus. They might be creating more money overall. There might be more money overall in the big pool of things, in the grand scheme of things, right? That might be the case. That might actually be correct. But it's not going to me or you. It's all going upwards. It is extracting the wealth we have, multiplying it along the way, and sending it straight up the fucking chain. That's how this works.
Many houses for sale on the market, creating more supply than there is demand, and housing prices aren't rising anymore. In fact, they plummet. This creates an interesting problem for homeowners still paying their mortgages. As all the houses in their neighborhood go up for sale, the value of their house goes down, and they start to wonder why they're paying back their $300,000 mortgage when the house is now worth only $90,000. They decide that it doesn't make sense to continue paying, even though they can afford to, and they walk away from their house. Default rates sweep the country, and prices plummet.
So, to recap what they just said there, one person defaults, another person defaults, a cascading effect ensues. Even the people who can't afford to continue paying their houses look and see that I am paying a ton of money on a debt for a thing that is now a piece of shit. I got a raw deal. Not only did you sell these other people a false bill of goods, but because you did that, now the thing that I own is worth jack shit. Why the fuck would I continue to pay you? Especially when the bottom of the market is falling out at such a rate that you might be in danger of losing your job. Maybe you need to pocket that money so you can buy fucking food and medicine for your family. Maybe that would be a better investment in the near future. Not this piece of shit fucking McMansion that you bought out in suburbia that is now a desert wasteland. There's fucking packs of wild dogs roaming the streets that you have to protect your children from because no one could afford the houses and the cops came and fucking kicked them all out.
Now the investment banker is basically holding a box full of worthless houses. He calls up his buddy, the investor, to sell his CDO, but the investor isn't stupid and says, no thanks. He knows that the stream of money isn't even a dribble anymore. The banker tries to sell to everyone, but nobody wants to buy his bomb. He's freaking out because he borrowed millions, sometimes billions of dollars to buy this bomb, and he can't pay it back. Whatever he tries, he can't get rid of it. But he's not the only one. The investors have already bought thousands of these bombs. The lender calls up trying to sell his mortgage, but the banker won't buy it, and the broker is out of work. The whole financial system is frozen, and things get dark. Everybody starts going bankrupt. But that's not all. The investor calls up the homeowner and tells him that his investments are worthless. And you can begin to see how the crisis flows in a cycle. Welcome to the crisis of credit.
Now, what this doesn't account for, all right, is... One second, I gotta move this. What it doesn't account for there is, remember, what they didn't discuss in the the credit crisis visualized video that they did in the inside job video is the credit default swaps through AIG, right? So not only is there a time bomb existing in the investors that bought the CDOs, the homeowners themselves, and the mortgage lenders along those lines, but there's a fourth echelon of debtor here, which is AIG, the people who sold the insurance policies on that debt to begin with. So when one home buyer cannot pay their mortgage and they default, then the system can withstand that impact, but like barely. Like only a small percentage of people had to default before these cascading effects started to happen. Only because they were all so over leveraged. Even the insurance companies like AIG. And so what happened is the government had to step in and actually rescue these companies where they had helped. I'm going to pull up a video about how they intervened. Oh, where's my video I was watching earlier? You know, the problem is when you look at a lot of this too, you get these psycho fucking conservative, these psycho conservatives who want to talk about it a lot. There's like Ayn Rand Institute and Reason TV videos that end up popping up here, which are just fantastic. You know what I'm gonna do? Let's go straight to the source. Inside job. Here we go. Let's see how Obama handled this.
When the financial crisis struck just before the 2008 election, Barack Obama pointed to Wall Street greed and regulatory failures as examples of the need for change in America.
A lack of oversight in Washington and on Wall Street is exactly what got us into this mess.
After taking office, Obama spoke of the need to reform the financial industry.
We want a systemic risk regulator, increased capital requirements. We need a consumer financial protection agency. We need to change Wall Street's culture.
But in its first year, the Obama administration did not enact a single major financial reform.
Addressing Obama and, quote, regulatory reform, my response, if it was one word, would be, ha.
Addressing Obama and his, quote, regulatory reform, if I had one word, it would be, ha.
There's very little reform.
How come?
It's a Wall Street government.
They cut it off there, but he said it's a Wall Street government. So this is after the fact. The idea that Obama was going to do something. You know, hope. Oh, the guy's dead now? Gotta be dead? Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm the world's greatest actor, you guys. I deserve an Oscar. I'll send you my headshots if you know of any roles for me. Okay. Obama ran on a platform of hope and change, right? Like, this can't happen again. We won't allow it to happen. So, what he ends up doing is a whole lot of fucking nothing, of course. I mean, why would he do anything? What incentive did he have to do anything? It was already done. He promoted one of the guys, Tim Geithner, who caused the crash, to be in his cabinet. Can't make this shit up, folks. All right, I'm going to rewind a little bit. The last guy who sounded like death. Ask where headshots receive the Jar Jar meme. Yeah, here's my headshot. You get Jar Jar's head. Oh, it looks good. That's a weird alien thing. You must be playing. Scroll down. Oh my god. Oh no. All right, let's watch a little bit of Enron, the biggest fraud in history. I'm going to rewind. And we're gonna talk about Enron, which is a precursor to the 2008 financial crisis. But it speaks to some of the corruption that was inherent to the system that was obvious. Not only was this big pyramid scheme set up so that the mortgage industry would collapse, but like we had a crisis just a few years earlier with one of the biggest companies traded on Wall Street. That was plenty of indication that there were systemic issues within the financial system. That it was deeply rotted from the inside. So we're going to watch a little bit of this. Don't call me Dick. Can we get a revolving door? No revolving doors. No, revolving door that rotates. Kenny Fox. I refuse based upon my colleague Marcus's previous descriptions of it. All right, let's watch some Enron shit. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up some more inside job clips. We'll go back to the 2008 financial crisis, but I do want to do some coverage of Enron right quick.
Hi, welcome to another Cold Fusion video. It's a distant fact now, but Enron was once the 7th largest corporation in America. They revolutionized trading and the energy market. They were far smarter than their competitors, and their business was intricate and too complex for the average person to understand. Except, in reality, it was all a big scam filled with lies, fraud, and political manipulation. Enron was the biggest scam in US history. The fallout from the scam was monumental. Billions of dollars stolen, thousands of lost jobs, dozens of convictions, one suicide, and the unveiling of a very public display of corporate greed that shined directly into the heart of corporate America. This is the story of how one company took 10 years to grow to $60 billion in value, and then, in less than a month, go bankrupt. This is the story of Enron.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
Enron began as an energy supply company mainly dealing with natural gas. Eventually, the company moved on to trading, making energy deals in power, and then later moving on to broadband and even trading the weather. They were Wall Street's darling, the company that could never lose, and its stock price kept growing year on year. The company was also well connected politically. For example, Enron was the single biggest contributor to the George W. Bush campaign. Bush even called Kenneth Lay, the founder of Enron, Kenny Boy. And it's with Kenny Boy that the story starts.
Kenny Boy.
Growing up in a poor family, Kenneth Lay's father was a Baptist priest. The young Ken would often ponder about his future, a future where he could escape his current conditions.
Look at this face. Does this look like the face of a man who would rip you off? Could you look in these eyes right here and think, this man would never betray me? Have I listened to You're Wrong About? Curious how... No, I haven't. I don't know what that is, Riviera.
When he grew up, he became a prominent figure in the deregulation of the energy sector. The PhD graduate spent his time as a financial analyst in the Pentagon before climbing the ranks and becoming close friends with George Bush Sr. Ken Lay would even send the...
I have some rules too. Never trust a single color bow tie. That's a good one, Kenny Fox. I also... Dead shark eyes. Yeah, never trust dead shark eyes. Also, I'm going to have to look up that podcast, Riviera. That sounds cool. I'm going to make a note here of what it's called. You're wrong about. I'm going to make a note of that. Also, never trust a person who smile. Bird lips. Yes, bird lips is racist. Racists never have lips. You talking to a person without lips? It's a good chance. Their lips disappear as the racism seeps into them. It changes it alters their DNA, and they start to curl inward. And they become this. George H.W. Well, also, never trust a guy who smiles with both top and bottom teeth. Never trust this. How you doing? What I got to do to get you in this nice car over here? It's a nice Coupe de Ville. Oh yeah, you look very good in that front seat, sir. I'll tell you what. Never trust that. Never trust a guy, to be honest. Yeah, never trust a guy. Exactly. You kids. Riviera and Sashi out here doing a misandry in my chat. How dare you? Next is going to be Freightophobia. Watch.
Enron corporate jet to take George Sr. and his wife to their son's inauguration. As you'll see later, these favors did not go unreturned. The first red flag for founder of the company, Kenneth Lay, that something was wrong within the company came during the Valhalla scandal of 1987. Two oil traders working for Enron gambled enormously on the company's behalf, shifting money to fake accounts with names such as MY Arse or My.
I'm just pausing there for a second. He speeds by this part. But we need to pause here for a second. We just need to take a look. The first clue that something might have been wrong. Not if you got a brokerage firm where people's transferring money to accounts for a Mr. MYS, you might be doing fraud. If you work for a brokerage company, you might be doing fraud. Mr. MYS. They were transferring money to an account in the name of Mr. My Ass. This is how little regulation there is in this industry. The psychos that go into it are so unfettered that they just did this. They just transferred money to like mydick.com. Mr. MYS.
My ass. Worried auditors told Lay that they found the two traders moving money into their own accounts, manipulating earnings, and gambling on trades beyond their capacity. But instead of firing the two rogue traders, Lay made no changes. Didn't seem to matter what they were doing, as long as they were making the company money. Enron even sent them a letter saying, "Please keep making us millions." Later, the two were convicted of fraud.
Oh, you don't say.
Ken Lay acted shocked, saying that he was not aware of their reckless gambling and theft. But as revealed later, he actually encouraged it. One of the convicted traders was sent to jail for a year, and this gave Ken Lay a big problem. One of his main moneymakers was behind bars, and he needed someone new to bring in cash. Enter Jeffrey Skilling. Skilling, Enron's new CEO, was Lay's biggest asset. When he arrived at Enron, he started moving the company in a new direction. Skilling wanted to turn Enron from a gas supply company into a stock market for natural gas. He also introduced the company to mark-to-market accounting, an idea that would allow the company to fraudulently reap billions. So mark-to-market accounting simply allows the company to write down profits in their books on the day that the deal was signed. This meant that if Enron signed a deal worth $50 million over the next 10 years, they could write $50 million in their books that day, despite not receiving a penny. It didn't even matter if the deal fell through. Effectively, this meant that the company was worth more on paper than it had actually earned. The deals were often subjective. They could be worth whatever Enron thought they were worth. When the Security and Exchange Commission approved the accounting trick of mark-to-market for Enron, the office celebrated.
So,
they knew that this was the key to making billions.
So, let's recap. Mark to market accounting. So, I just love that it's like it's mark to market, like mark to mark, like as in like the term for a person that you fuck over, you know, a mark. Look at this fucking mark. So what happened was he was like, listen, what if we sign a deal with someone? And even though they haven't paid us anything, even though the deal only exists theoretically on paper, it could fall through even. Let's take every bit of value that we think will be extracted from this deal and say we have it right then. Because as you know, the stock market just runs on perceived value of things, right? Like it's gambling on it's a complicated way of gambling on how people perceive the value of things, the monetary value of things. It's manipulated, of course. Like it's not just that like those things, there's a objective reality in which those things have perceived value based upon need and stuff. Obviously, the guys who make market making, who are in that business, are the ones who manipulate it. But what if you could go beyond that? What if you could sign a deal with someone and you could just say, you know what? I know we're only signing a deal for $3 million, but I think we're going to make a lot more than that off this deal, because I think this product that we're buying, or this service that we're buying, is actually undervalued. So I think we're going to make $8 million. So go ahead and put $8 million on the books right now for the deals that we're making, for this deal that we're signing. Say we have $8 million in the account. So the perceived value of our company goes up by $8 million at the least. Now, that $3 million deal could completely fall out. You could pay none of that money. Or the product or service that you're buying, the deal itself, could be overvalued and it could be worth less. In either case, you have a ton of fake money on your books. You have millions and millions of dollars of fake money on your books that you are saying your company is valued at because of X deal that only exists in the ether, hypothetically.
Meanwhile, Skilling was known for his Darwinian philosophy, survival of the fittest. His favorite book, The Selfish Gene, describes how greed and competition motivate human nature.
It could go through, Franglish, and you could make a lot of money. You're right. But the way that you make money in this case is by selling stock in your own company, right? You are inflating the stock of your own company by saying, look at all these deals we're doing. We're doing all the deals, you guys, and they're big deals. There's tons of money. So people say, holy shit, they're doing tons of big deals. I've got to fucking get in on this. I've got to buy this stock. It's going to go up. It has to, because look at the business they're doing. You are artificially increasing the value of your company, which is the definition of fraud. No, I know you know it's fraudulent. I'm not saying that you're saying it's not that, Franglish. I'm just saying I wanted to correct myself and say you're right. It could go through and you could make a lot of money. Like you could make a lot of money off of the deal itself that we're referring to, which is artificially inflated. You could actually make that money. It could end up being true what you guessed at the time. But that's the problem. That's a guess. And also you have a direct incentive to inflate that guess every time. Because the more you inflate it, the more the value of your company goes up.
At Enron, Skilling wanted to unlock these instincts in his employees. One way he did this was grading all employees on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the best and 5 being the worst. The thing was, 10% of all employees had to be graded a 5, and when you were graded a 5, you were fired. This created the competition that Skilling was looking for. People began to work 18 hours a day and were ruthless in their efforts to earn the company as much money as possible. Skilling famously said that money was the only thing that motivated people. Unsurprisingly, Skilling was a massive risk taker. He often went on wild adventures with other Enron executives. This includes dirt biking on dangerous trails where people often flip their cars. An executive even required stitches after a biking accident on one of these trips. Skilling said he liked guys like this, guys with a bit of edge. Lau Pai, a mild-mannered executive, was one of these guys with a bit of edge. Skilling called Lau Pai his ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. He was CEO of an Enron subsidiary and seemed to be motivated by 2 things: money and strippers. Pai isn't as mysterious a figure as one can be in such a huge scandal. He left Enron in 2001 with $250 million and became the second largest landowner in Colorado. He left his business division with $1 billion of losses and escaped the whole scandal pretty much intact. Pai would come back later into this story, a few decades after the dust settles.
Enron Online will change the markets for many, many commodities. It is creating an open, transparent marketplace that replaces the dark, blind system that existed. It is real simple. You turn on your computer and it's right there. And if you want to do business, you push the button. That's our vision. We're trying to change the world.
These people are like Tim and Eric skit characters. You're right. Can you just imagine? Like part of this is just like the evolution. Like they're on the brink of technological innovation, right? Like in the 2000s of like there being a more democratized version of brokerage, of stock brokerage available to the average consumer. Whereas before, like your Wall Street banker has connections to the interwebs to do stonks for a long time, right? For years, and like since the internet, like the advent of the internet, basically, one of the first things you do with it is figure out how to move more fucking money around. But the average consumer at this time is getting access to it. And Enron is selling the idea. You know those guys who are yelling on the TV, holding up those slits of paper, saying fucking buy, sell, those high-powered dudes who get all the coke and the hookers and shit? You can be one of those. Your schlubby ass sitting in your chair at home. You can be one of those with Enron Online. Stand up in your chair, declare victory, do deals, do stonk, do phone, do computer. That's how you do it, man. Get excited. Waste your money. And the modern version of that is just Robinhood. I has app now. Not only did I not have to do it sit in my chair, I can do it on the bus. My minimum wage paycheck? I can bet stonks on a little rectangle now. Cool. Hold the line. I'm going to freshen up my drink, Chad. I'll be right
back. It wasn't just internet companies feeling the fever. Enron's stock had tripled in the space of 2 years. Everyone with a little bit of spare cash was playing the stock market game. Enron knew that as long as the company met or exceeded analysts' expectations, the stock price would keep rising. And somehow, they always met or exceeded those expectations. During this time, while Jeff Skilling stood at the company's conventions telling his staff to put more of their 401k into Enron, he knew that the profits were actually going in the opposite direction. Around the world, they were losing billions on natural gas projects. Enron had poured billions of dollars into a plant in India, only to realize that India couldn't afford to buy the electricity. The site lay in ruins, but that didn't stop the executives at Enron writing down future profits for the project into their books and handing themselves massive bonuses. The analysts, the very people who were supposed to stop the corruption, fell under the spell of Skilling. The complexity of the company and the charisma of Skilling made analysts simply take him at his word. In fact, the ones that didn't were fired. The company soon began trading bandwidth after some .com inspiration. They made a deal with Blockbuster to provide streaming services, but the technology just simply didn't work well enough yet. The deal fell through, but Enron still wrote $53 million in their books for it. Things began to get out of control, and Enron soon began trading weather. Yes, the weather, like sunshine and rain. They would soon sell futures on the weather, essentially gambling what the temperature would be. You would probably imagine that most people would be skeptical of this, but it was activities like this that led Enron to being listed on the Fortune 500's most innovative companies list. But one reporter at Fortune would soon start asking questions, and this would later lead to the company's demise. Bethany McLean, a reporter at Fortune, was doing a piece on Enron. She had a phone call with John Skilling where she asked some simple questions like, how exactly does Enron make its money? Skilling said he couldn't answer because he wasn't an accountant, so he sent a few finance guys, including Andy Fustow, the CFO, to answer her questions the next day. They sat in the office for 3 hours poring over documents. At the end, as others had left the room, Andy turned to the reporter and said, "I don't care what you write about the company, just don't make us look bad." Andy Fustow was a character described as having no moral compass. He made Enron debts disappear by moving them to shell companies so that on paper, Enron was profitable. He even set up his own fraudulent firm just to buy Enron assets.
Imagine I muted the vid. You guys couldn't hear it that time? Oh, I was going to say. It looked like it was playing the sound to me. Crazy kids. Yeah. They imagine you're sitting down with a reporter and they ask you, "How does your business make money? How do you make money?" As just an individual. You're just like how do you make money? Like, well, I get paid this much an hour, or I get this in salary, I get this much in disability or something. Like, you can answer that question. Imagine asking a CEO, "How does your company make money?" And not only could they not give a simple, not only could they not give an answer, like even a convoluted one about like, well, there's financial instruments that are collateralizing debt, and we are investing in individual entities, or you can give some, I can pull a convoluted answer out of my ass right now. But like, yeah, your answer is, "Let me get Bob from accounting." Exactly. Electric me. You're like, oh, fuck. I'm going to have to get back to you on how we make money at all. And the real answer is, you have a psycho named Andy Fustow who creates fake companies to buy assets that are already fake from Enron to make them look valuable. We basically overvalue our assets and transactions. How's that? Yeah, exactly, Burnout Cook. I mean, the sad thing is that this is not like all that different from what exists today. This is an extreme example of it. Like, basically what the markets learned, or what companies like this learned to do, was not be so blatant about it. Like, they learned that, like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of QAnon. I'm obsessed with QAnon bullshit, like conspiracy theory bullshit. I think it's fascinating and deeply, deeply scary and sad at the same time. But what I always say about QAnon is it starts from a kernel of truth. It starts from, I feel like there are people in power who have too much power, and they use that power to abuse people who don't have as much power, even the most vulnerable amongst us. And I feel like that's pretty commonplace for them to do that. And there must be systems in place which allow them to do that. There must be accomplices who enable that behavior, right? Which is the definition of a conspiracy. Well, here, now, Enron has no kernel of truth. They create everything out of nothing and create intricate systems of curtains and smoke screens to prevent you from knowing that they created something from nothing. What companies learned now
I am a phoenix rising
is just
from
to
the
create
ashes.
something from a tiny kernel of something else. So basically, the leverage ratios we were talking about earlier, right? A bank owns a shit ton of debt. Like they buy up like millions and millions of dollars worth of debt, but they sell that debt 20 times that ratio. They gamble on it so large that like they can make a ton of money off it as long as everyone involved is paying their obligations, but they know they probably can't. So they're going to milk the cow for as long as they can. So they have a kernel of a couple of bajillion dollars that they're turning into fulfillion bajillion gagillion dollars by betting on it. But they got that little kernel of truth. So when they're done, once the bottom falls out, they can say, "Hey, listen, we didn't know this tiny kernel. We thought it was huge. We thought it was big the whole time. We thought it was going to grow into a great big oak. We didn't. We how could we know that there was going to be a storm? How could we know that it was actually a dog turd that we sold us? It wasn't a kernel at all." How could we know that? Well, they knew the whole time, but they can pretend. They can pretend that this little kernel of something that may have turned into something if they had just been careful with it, if they had treated it appropriately, then they may have actually been able to, people would have been able to make money off it, a modest living. Them and the people who owned the debt too. But that's not what they do. So that's the lesson that we're going to end up learning from this Enron video, I think, in the end, is just don't put smoke screens on top of your smoke screens and have a kernel of something that you can point to at the end of the day and say, this is why we fucked up.
This fraudulent firm was called LJM. Andy would later convince 96 bankers to invest in the scam LJM firm. LJM would make Andy Fostow $45 million, but it seemed that the banks were in on the deal too. Merrill Lynch bought 3 Nigerian barges from Enron and sold them back 5 months later. This was to help Enron cook their books, and later, several bankers would go to jail for this. Both Skilling and Lay knew that even this couldn't last forever. They needed a new gold mine. And then, they turned their eyes to the Golden State, California. Now, Skilling became increasingly volatile, arriving at work unshaved and red-eyed. On a 2001 investor's call, he even called an investor an a-hole. A brash reaction from a Fortune 500 CEO. The pressure was getting to him.
That's what's up. Oh no, when your CEO starts calling investors assholes, then you're in trouble. I can't believe he would be so uncouth. How about we get mad about the fact that he is fleecing people for millions of dollars? I don't give a fuck if he shows up unshaved for work. Suck my dick. I want to get mad about the fact that he's fleecing people for millions of dollars.
The company had to keep making quarterly targets despite their businesses failing at home and abroad. California was going to be their next big score. Enron merged with Pacific Gas and Electric, which gave them access to the Californian grid. Once this was achieved, strange things began to happen.
Will you guys
in the
invest
newly deregulated
in, like,
electricity
Warlock
market of
banking
California, rolling blackouts became common. But strangely, the state had almost double the capacity than there was
DWC,
demand.
Dick Warlock
So
Capital.
why was this happening? It turns out Enron traders were manipulating the market. They moved electricity out of state to increase demand, and when the price got high enough, they would move it back in. They even called power plants and asked them to make excuses to shut down for a few hours, increasing the price as there was less demand. Traders had energy maps and the control to move the energy. They knew exactly how to squeeze every last dollar from the people of California. While the state faced
So, you don't have the boost challenge? Rip the chatbot? It should be at the top of your chat box. You might need to refresh. If you refresh, it might pop up. Yeah, PG&E is a very ethical, normal company that's never done anything bad. To reiterate what they just said, Enron created a financial market for energy. Now, this is very relevant today, considering what's happening in Texas. They created a financial market which allowed traders to look at energy maps and say, where is it cold? Where is it hot? Where will there be demand for energy? And how can I make sure that those people can't get it as to make other people pay more? I will literally call up the engineer responsible at the energy factory, at the factory that has the hamsters on the wheels, and say, shoot 3 of the hamsters real quick. Because we need to make sure that the demand goes up. The supply goes down, so demand goes up, so that we make more money. Go murder 3 of the hamsters. How perverse is it to have a trader, a person who has no background in energy, in providing it, and making sure it safely gets to households, and making sure that it's efficient, who even understands how it's produced. Like, they might literally think that there's a hamster wheel. They might think that the dick-sucking factory has somehow been electrified. we somehow figured out how to harness the power of the dick-sucking factory. But then they call them up and say, shut down the dick-sucking for a while. Just some asshole in New York. Some asshole in a fucking tie who's doing coke off of fucking hookers as we speak. Like, yeah, shut it down for 3 hours. That's what I need. This is great stuff, you guys. This is a great country we live in. Oh, thank you for the sub there, goes to TR, gifting a tier 1. What up? And thank you for the 100 bits, Pooperetti. Austerity is racism, says Pooperetti. Interestingly, the term privatization was coined during the post-war economic evaluations of Third Reich tactics. That doesn't surprise me one bit. Yeah, we need to nationalize the dick-sucking factories, Bruno Cook. Exactly.
I know you're hoping and praying that maybe we'll have another war, but it ain't
That sounds
happening.
like a t-shirt.
I personally have a shrine to Hillary Clinton.
When the merch really gets rolling out, maybe nationalize the dick-sucking factories will be a t-shirt, you guys. I want to put that on a mug or something.
Blackouts causing unknown tolls on the lives of Californians, the Enron traders were high-fiving themselves over their bonuses. Ken Lay even said, "It doesn't matter how many rules you Californians make, I got a bunch of smart people here that will figure out how to make money anyway." The year-long ordeal would cost California $30 billion. But why didn't the state put a stop to it? Well, the law states that it's a federal government issue, and it's their responsibility to take care of it. And guess who the president was at the time? That's right, Lay's good friend, George W. Bush.
Wait.
Bush refused to step in.
Wait. Oh, shit. Megabytes with 5 tier 1s. That's what's up. Thank you. Oh, we're at a hype train. We're in a hype train. Bronte Cat with 100 biddies.
I personally have a shrine to Hillary Clinton.
Let's fucking go. All right. Any hype recommendations? Let's vibe for a minute. Who wants to? Any vibe recommendations?
I know you're hoping and praying that maybe we'll have another war, but it ain't happening.
Death Streaks gifting 2 tier 2 subs. What up, Death Streaks? Thank you. That's what's up. Give me some vibe recommendations in the chat. We'll vibe to something right quick. Dick solo stream hype. Yeah, this is my first hype train for You Don't Know Dick. I didn't get one for my first stream.
I personally have a shrine to Hillary Clinton.
The E-Harmony, the ramps. We can do ramp. I mean, we can do classics. I'm fine with that. But I was wondering if anyone had...
I know you're hoping and praying that maybe we'll have another war, but it ain't happening.
Let me pull up the ramp song.
There's no way I can make it down that ramp. I said, there's no way I can make it down
shit,
that ramp.
1,500 biddies from Death Streaks, 100 from Bronte Cat. What up? Hey, Antonio with 500 biddies. Let's fucking go.
I don't want that.
All right.
And this was a steel ramp. Really, really steamy. No hair, girl. It was like an ice skating rink. I said, there's no way I can make it down that ramp without falling on my ass. Inch by inch, I took these little steps. When I was 10 feet short, I ran down the left. I ran.
500 biddies from Death Streaks. Let's go. I'm going to pull up this parent on crap. Don't make me regret it. Always do suit right.
And the ramp was probably 10 yards long.
That's funny.
This question is on COVID.
I think you're going to have a big surprise, a beautiful surprise, sooner than anybody would think. But the answer is...
I personally...
Thank you for the 200 biddies. Ancom Soccer Mom, what up? Ancom Soccer Mom is our newest mod, you guys.
Because I've done it, skills down, it doesn't look good for a long time.
Got the sword, got the stab.
So I said to my people, slow the testing down. The ramp speech. This speech has been the best.
I personally have a shrine.
It's true. I ran.
All right. So with that said, Linda, hi, Linda.
I have a question for you. What do you think is your greatest accomplishment in your eyes?
I ran. Down ran. Trending number one. If I fall, the fall would be definitely bad. If I fall, the best fall anybody's ever had. There's no way I can make it down that ramp without falling on my ass. There's no way. General, somebody grab me so fast. I don't like that. Inch by inch, I took these little steps, but I was 10 feet short. I ran down the left. I ran. Down ran. I looked very handsome. I ran.
Sir, are you telling the American people that 2 large steps constitutes a run?
I ran. Down ran. I looked very handsome. I ran. Down ran. Trending number one.
I think I am the perfect person.
Smoke, yo ho! Help me! I've been yelling about going down ramps for 30 minutes.
All right, let's do this Antifa song. I heard this earlier. This is a very good one. This is gonna live rent free in your head, as the people say.
Why, yes, I'm an evil left-wing sheeple snowflake working.
Let's quiet. 1 second. Let's start over.
Why, yes, I'm an evil left-wing sheeple snowflake working for the deep state, here to force your wives to get abortions and then leave you for transgender lesbians. Yes, it was us Antifa that stormed the Capitol to make you all look bad so that we can take your guns, spread communism, and blast Cardi B in your churches. And you're never gonna stop us, no, 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 you're never. Why, yes, I'm an evil left-wing sheeple snowflake working for the deep state, here to force your wives to get abortions and then leave you for transgender lesbians. Yes, it was us Antifa that stormed the Capitol to make you all look bad so that we can take your guns, spread communism, and blast Cardi B in your churches. And you're never gonna stop us, no, 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 you're never. Why, yes, I'm an evil left-wing sheeple snowflake working for the deep state, here to force your wives to get abortions and then leave you for transgender lesbians. Yes, it was us Antifa that stormed the Capitol to make you all look bad so that we can take your guns, spread communism, and blast Cardi B in your churches. And you're never gonna stop us, no, 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 you're never. Why, yes, I'm an evil left-wing.
3 times is enough. Mandy Ribble with 100 biddies. Let's go. Let's go. What up? What ass parables? Yeah, this is what our plan is, you guys. We're evil left-wing sheeple, hell-bent on turning your wives into transgender and lesbians and blasting Cardi B in your churches. Let's go. I said what Antifa's agenda is. They found us. Sorry. Sounds cool to me. I don't see what the fucking problem is.
I personally have a shrine to Hillary Clinton.
I don't see the fucking problem. All right. Thank you for the successful level 4 hype train. Oh, wait, level 3. My bad. That was fun, you guys. Appreciate it. 8 subs, 3,200 biddies. Let's go. Let's get back to the Enron breakdown. Keep hitting us with those stream challenge points as well. You got the hype train emotes as well. Now you got 60K raised for the community challenge. We are gonna need 178K to get the stream boosted effectively. Which apparently what that means is what Twitch told us. It means is that if we get the stream effectively boosted, it's more likely that we will end up like on the front page of Twitch. So it's more likely we'll get more organic viewers from like Twitch itself. You know, people who aren't familiar with the stream already. Obviously, you guys are coming to us from either knowing us on Twitch or on Twitter or something. More chuds, woo. Yeah, it doesn't appear for everyone. It comes and goes. Like there's an algorithm that like Twitch uses for it to pop up. Like I can only see it sometimes. Like I just went away from me. So if you can't see it when I'm talking about it, try hit refresh. It might pop up. If chuds show up, yeah, whatever. Cool. Chuds can show up. We'll ban them. We get the mods here. Yeah, check your stolen valors. Go to your stolen valors and do it there. Yeah, it gives Abby a job. But I mean, chuds are fun too. I mean, we can always indoctrinate them, right? We can give them subs and put them on the House on Un-American Activities Commission's committee's list. It's a good way if they wander in here. That's how they end up on a list.
Saying that it was his administration's belief that intervention would not solve anything. The Federal Energy Regulation Commission also didn't step in until the Senate forced them to. The chairman of the commission was personally recommended by Kenneth Lay. This whole ordeal caused the people of California to turn on their governor and appoint a new one that was more suitable for the role, the Terminator.
I love that they...
One day in 2001, out of the blue, Skilling...
California got rid of that fucking Frankenstein-looking weirdo Gray Davis, the little like weenie Democrat. He was like, "Oh, there's nothing we can do. Enron's got us over a barrel. I'm sorry. I'm just one man. What can I do?" And then Arnold came in and fucking was like, "No way." GOP strongman coming in, big biceps. And just totally put Enron in a headlock, you guys. He totally owned them. That's what happened. That's the power of conservatism right there. Okay?
Suddenly resigned. Perhaps he figured he could leave the company years before it imploded. Then he could say, well, it was fine when I left it. Regardless, Kenneth Lay took over the CEO role. Just one day later, Sharon Watkins, who worked under the company CFO Andrew Fostow, sent a letter to Kenneth Lay detailing the staggering amount of corruption and fraud that she'd found within the company. The Wall Street Journal would write a piece about some of Andy's dealings, and soon, the SEC would launch an informal inquiry. At this point...
So, let's just recap what just happened. Schwarzenegger's not really based. I was just kidding about that. I don't think he had anything to do with regulating this. I was being sarcastic. He's a fucking lib, basically. He is to the extreme left wing of the GOP, which is not saying much. Like Bernie is to the extreme left wing of the Democratic Party, right? Like he's technically an independent, but he caucuses with the Democrats. Like Bernie is the extreme left wing of the Democratic Party, AOC, right? Which isn't saying much. It's basically sock dem status. Being to the extreme left wing of the GOP is Arnold. He vetoed Medicare for all in California. Yeah, his weird, my dad was a Nazi and beat my mom after January 6th. We watched that on stream. Exactly, that's what happened. But to get back to Enron. So, what had happened was the shilling guy who fucking was a psycho who was unshaven and calling investors asshole because so much pressure was on him from doing all the fraud. He resigns. Kenneth Lay takes over, who is already on the board of directors above him, as CEO officially. And then someone who works under one of the psychos that's also helping prop up the company, Andy Fastow, his CFO, I forget her name. Who was like, hey, here's the colossal amount of fraud that's going on in our company, you fucking idiot. Here's the fucking colossal amount of fraud that's going on. It's a problem. So then an article gets written in a major publication that says, maybe Enron's overpriced. Maybe there's something else going on here. And then, and only then, does an informal investigation start from the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, which is a formal body meant to regulate this kind of shit. Did that. Finally, an informal investigation. After a major publication released an article that said, might want to look into the overpriced nature of this fucking obvious fraud.
Investors began to feel nervous. Kenneth Lay tried to bring calm and reassurance to investors and employees. While he was addressing the company's issue to a speech to employees, just several blocks away, Enron's accounting firm was busy shredding documents.
Clouded's always lurking, you guys.
One of the accounting firms shredded 1 ton of paper on October the 23rd, but it was too late. The walls began to fall, and over the course of a month, the company went from that healthy appearance of one of the leading innovators to total bankruptcy.
Oh, is there Discord drama?
You want us to believe that you sat there in your office and didn't and had no clue that this place was about to collapse.
On the day I left, on August 14th, 2001, I believe the company was in strong financial condition. I did not do anything wrong that was not in the interest, and all the time that I worked for Enron Corporation, that was in the interest of the shareholders of the company. If I could go...
So he just did a Freudian slip. Let's watch that again. I'm pretty sure that's what just happened. Let's watch this again.
That this place was about to collapse.
On the day I left, on August 14th, 2001, I believe the company was in strong financial condition. I did not do anything wrong that was not in the interest, and all the time that I worked for Enron Corporation, that was in the interest of the shareholders of the company.
So the way he worded that, because he like kind of started over his sentence a few times, but it sounds like he like almost said like, I did not do anything that was in the interest of the shareholders of the company. Like he was trying to say I never worked against the shareholder, but he kind of accidentally said like I never once was in favor of them. I never once made a decision that would favor them. I always fucked them.
If I could go back and redo things, I would not. Now.
He would not go back.
For the thousands of people who held Enron stock, the market was frozen at the $32 mark, and when it reopened, it was $9 a share. Meanwhile, Enron executives had a fire sale of all of their stock. In the months leading up to the bankruptcy, Skilling told his employees to buy more stock while he sold all of his. As the media began circling the story, criminal investigations were launched.
This is a very common phenomenon, by the way. When a CEO or a major shareholder in a company begins to sell their stock off, inevitably, what they will do is tell you, this is just because I'm going to spend more time with my family. I've got a new hobby, you guys. There's nothing to be in fact, you should buy more of the stock. I'm just cashing out because it's my time to go. There's not a bigger problem here. Buy more of the stock. It's actually good. And every single time, it's because they're like, oh no, I did fraud, and the fraud's going to be exposed, and that is going to affect the value of these assets that I hold. I better sell them while they're still valuable. Every single time it is fraud.
Cliff Baxter, a trader who often went on Skilling's wild adventures, cashed in $30 million from Enron. After being called to testify in court, Baxter got in his Mercedes, drove down a quiet street, and shot himself. Andy Fostow, the former CFO, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud. He ratted out and cut himself a deal to testify against other Enron executives.
So, one guy takes the easy way out and is like, oh yeah, I did cash out. I got $30 million. Woe's me. I'm probably going to have to go to prison for doing all the fraud. Decides to off himself. And then this guy is like, I'll just flip. I'll just flip and hope that it saved my own ass. This is the psycho who literally set up fake companies to buy the assets. This is a guy who is more responsible for this fraud than anyone else at the company.
He was sentenced to 10 years but only served 6 and paid $23 million in fines. Enron's accounting firm, Arthur Andersen,
I also
the one
find
that
it weird that that Fasto guy looks like Jeffrey Epstein. Here, let's go back. I want to look at this. Doesn't he kind of look like Epstein? I mean, as much as any guy with like silver hair, a decent hairline, and like silver hair white guy looks. Do they make these guys in a fucking psycho pedo lab?
Against other Enron executives. He was sentenced to 10 years but only served 6 and paid $23 million in fines. Enron's accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, the one that shredded 1 ton of paper, was convicted of obstructing justice. America's oldest accounting firm collapsed due to the loss of reputation. 29,000 people lost their jobs. Ken Lay earned $300 million from Enron. He was found guilty of 10 counts of securities fraud and was facing 45 years in prison, but died of a heart attack a month before his sentencing.
Oh.
20,000.
Wait, 1 second. I have to sneeze. You got. Sorry. That's allergies.
1,000 people at Enron lost their jobs and medical insurance, with an average severance pay of only $4,500. Executives were paid $55 million during the bankruptcy and cashed a further $774 million in the year before the collapse. Skilling, the mastermind behind Enron.
Oh shit, Riviera? Oh, we have a new mob when I get around to it. Yes. Riviera, you're going to be given the sword. That is a fantastic idea, Clouded.
Was convicted of 19 counts of security and wire fraud. He was sentenced to 24 years and $180 million in fines. While in jail, his parents and his son passed away. He only served 12 years of his 24-year sentence and was released in early 2019. But this isn't where the story ends.
Oh, Skilling gets a second act. Skilling, this fucking psycho gets a second act.
Skilling is hoping that he can get a second chance. He appears to be plotting a return to the energy sector. Only 2 months after his prison release in early 2019, Skilling was entered as a manager of a new company which he founded a few years ago. Lau Pai, the former Enron executive who sailed off into the sunset with his $250 million, is reported to be helping Skilling regain connections and funding. According to the Wall Street Journal, Skilling has been holding meetings with former Enron executives in relation to starting a new venture. This may be difficult for him as obviously his reputation has been massively smeared. But apart from
the thing that Wall Street is worried about is reputation. Why isn't there a law that be like you are not allowed to have money? Never mind assets. Never mind a controlling stake in a financial services firm. Like, here, you're on bread and water for the rest of your life. There should be a gulag for these motherfuckers. They should not. I mean, honestly, in China, so I'm not the biggest fan of China. China is an authoritarian state which does horrific things to its citizens. You know one thing I'm not horrified by that they do? When a billionaire is found to be doing fraud on a massive scale, they get unalived. They are convicted in the people's court. They are unalived. That's a pretty big incentive not to do that shit. Even if you're a psychopath, right? A psychopath can be like, I enjoy causing pain and misery, but I don't want to be fucking decapitated. I don't want to be hung from the neck until dead. So maybe I should not do these bad things.
from people's perception, there's technically nothing stopping him. The SEC has banned Skilling from being an officer of any public company, so as long as his venture stays private, he can do whatever he wants.
Okay, so the SEC did ban him from publicly traded companies, but private companies they don't regulate. Basically, no one regulates private companies. Like, he can run a private hedge fund. It's no problem. You were friends with the son of the Enron exec that killed himself just before everything went down. That was an extremely fucked up week. Damn. Small world, Ugly Pottery. Small world.
So that is the story of Enron, with a not so typical ending. Despite being one of the biggest players in the biggest scam in US history, resulting in billions of dollars in losses for average people, tens of thousands of lost jobs, and executives reaping in billions, Skilling is out of jail and free to start again. Enron's motto was Ask Why. During his astronomical...
Jesus Christ. The police gave the press his suicide note before his wife even read it. It showed up in the newspapers. Well, that's an indictment of not only the financial services industry, but also the police, right? The cops that responded to Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash took pictures of him and his daughter's corpse and showed it to girls at bars to try to get laid. It was like, hey, you know how Kobe died? I was there. Check it out. They don't give a... They have no respect for human life. It's very sad to me, especially considering rich person jail isn't worth ending your life over. No, it's not. I mean, as you can see, there's not any real repercussions for these people. Like, I don't want that man to take his own life. I want him to be never allowed to have power in these decisions anymore. And I do think that people who have a tremendous amount of power should be punished for when they prove themselves to be corrupted by that power and to affect people on a large scale adversely that they're supposed to be acting in the interest of. Yes. My bigger problems with our criminal justice system is how effectively it subjugates people who have no power. People who are marginalized, in fact. That's how it's effective. It's not effective in regulating these fuckers, ever. It should be more stringent at the top. It should be. I mean, I'm all for the abolition of the prisons and police. Like that's as a leftist, it's a baseline of calling yourself a leftist, I say, would be an abolition of the prison system and the criminal justice system as it currently stands, considering how adverse it is for marginalized peoples. It does not work in our favor. It works in the favor of the powerful already. But if we're able to create a new system which is ruthless to those who hold power and wield it incorrectly, wield it to conduct fraud, I would be in favor of that.
Rise, it seemed that no one bothered to ask why, how, or where the money was coming from. And now, with Skilling out of jail and trying to re-enter the business world, maybe once again, we should ask, why?
Ask why. So he just took the ask why, enrononline.com. So he tried to steal the tagline from that dumb commercial we watched earlier.
Wraps up our look at Enron. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see stuff like this, or much more, you should definitely consider subscribing to this channel. If you want to see my last video on business fraud, which was the Theranos story, I'll leave a link for that after this.
Theranos is a whole different thing. We won't be watching that right now, but I did want to, we just watched a whole Cold Fusion video, so I'll give them a shout out. I mean, they don't need my shout out because they have 2.86 million subscribers. I'd never heard of them until today. But that was a Cold Fusion video. So let's go back to me right quick, and then we're going to wrap up the stream with talking about how we ended up handling. So we just saw the repercussions for Enron, right? A massive, massive bubble formed by massive amounts of smoke screens to protect smoke screens of facades to protect fraud within a single massive corporation. But we started out talking about the 2008 financial crash and how that crash was echoed throughout the financial system, the mortgage system, the insurance system, all those things, not just one company like Enron, right? But Enron's a microcosm of how this corruption happens because there isn't any real regulation. These guys are incentivized to create money out of nothing and then obscure the fact that there was nothing there to begin with, right? And this ends up creating the 2008 financial crisis just a few years later. But let's talk about what the fallout was for the 2008 financial crisis. I'm trying to find the clip here. I think this is it.
Huge knock-on effects around the system.
The oldest money market fund in the nation wrote off roughly $750 million in bad debt issued by the now bankrupt Lehman Brothers.
Lehman's failure also caused a collapse in the commercial paper market, which many companies depend on.
We're going to skip ahead. Where is... Should be part 4, accountability.
Was the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors under George W. Bush.
Do you think the financial services industry has too much political power in the United States?
I don't think so, no. You certainly wouldn't get that impression by the drubbing that they regularly get.
The drubbing. Oh, I love the idea that the poor financial services industry is just having so many problems.
In Washington.
Many prominent academics quietly make fortunes while helping the financial industry.
Oh, yes. Pooperetti says, watch Adam Karras' Hypernormalization. Oh, my God. Hypernormalization is so good. I haven't watched Adam Karras' new thing. Hypernormalization is it's like 3 hours long, and it's literally mind-bending. It's meant to alter like the way that you view reality in general. And it does a very effective job of it. It demonstrates how the surreal world that we live in is hypernormalized every day in every way by the institutions that prop up this surreal, incredibly ineffective and extracting wealth from lower classes institutions that we currently have.
Shape public debate and government policy. The Analysis Group, Charles River Associates, Compass Lexicon, and the Law and Economics Consulting Group manage a multi-billion-dollar industry that provides academic experts for hire. Two bankers who used these services were Ralph Ciaffi and Matthew Tannen. Bear Stearns hedge fund managers prosecuted for securities fraud. After hiring the Analysis Group, both were acquitted. Glenn Hubbard was paid $100,000 to testify in their defense.
This is covering how, this is a particularly telling point in the film here, where they're covering how not only is the financial services industry corrupt, like at its core, at its operational core, but they have done a very good job of swindling their way into education as well. Like, this guy is a Columbia professor who teaches economics. And he helps get people, he gets paid to help get people who have conducted security fraud out of jail.
Do you think that the economics discipline has a conflict of interest problem?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Do you think that a significant fraction of the economics discipline, number of economists, have financial conflicts of interest that in some way might call into question or color?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I doubt it. Most academic economists, aren't wealthy business people.
Hubbard makes $250,000 a year as a board member of MetLife and was formerly on the board of Capmark, a major commercial mortgage lender during the bubble, which went bankrupt in 2009. He has also advised Nomura Securities, KKR Financial Corporation, and many other financial firms.
All that on
Laura
a CV.
Tyson, who declined to be interviewed for this film, is a professor at the University of California, Berkeley. She was the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors and then director of the National Economic Council in the Clinton administration. Shortly after leaving government, she joined the board of Morgan Stanley, which pays her $350,000 a year. Ruth Simmons, the president of Brown University, makes over $300,000 a year on the board of Goldman Sachs. Larry Summers, who as Treasury Secretary played a critical role in the deregulation of derivatives, became president of Harvard in 2001. While at Harvard, he made millions consulting to hedge funds and millions more in speaking fees, much of it from investment banks. According to his federal disclosure report, Summers' net worth is between $16.5 million and $39.5 million. Frederick Mishkin, who returned to Columbia Business School after leaving the Federal Reserve, reported on his federal disclosure report that his net worth was between $6 million and $17 million.
In 2006, you co-authored a study of Iceland's financial system.
Right.
Iceland is also an advanced country with excellent institutions, low corruption, rule of law.
So just as a precursor to this, the movie starts out with a description of how Iceland, being a very stable democracy with well-regulated finance industry, ends up collapsing overnight in 2008 because they fell victim to some of the same shit that we've been talking about over the stream. Now, this guy, another professor at Columbia, Frederick Mishkin, wrote a report that said the economy has already adjusted to financial liberalization, which is already completed a long time ago, with prudential regulation and supervision is generally quite strong. So basically saying that, like, there's no danger of this system collapsing. It's very stable. There is financial stability in Iceland. This is before the crash. He writes this.
The economy has already adjusted to financial liberalization, while prudential regulation and supervision is generally quite strong.
Yeah, and that was the mistake. That turns out that that the prudential regulation and supervision was not strong in Iceland, and particularly
so what
during
led
this
you
period,
to think that it was?
I think that you're going with the information you had, and
I love. This is a great movie. You should watch it. You should watch the entirety of Inside Job, this documentary from 2010, because a lot of it is the gratification that you will get from the director of the documentary grilling these little worms. These fucking, he found some guys that were at the crux of causing the crisis and enabling it, but also are completely taken aback that someone would ask them questions and imply that they are responsible. Like they are just like little, like worms on a hook right now. This guy's being dangled before like a fucking barracuda. He's just, I don't know. It wasn't there. It was a tough situation. It's so satisfying. So fucking satisfying.
And generally, the view was that Iceland had very good institutions. It was a very advanced country.
Who told you that? What kind of research did you do?
You talk to people. You have faith in the central bank, which actually did fall down on the job. Clearly,
why do you have faith in a central bank?
Well, that faith because you go with the information you have.
How much were you paid to write it?
I was paid. I think the number was. It's public information.
So he was paid. He refused to say what he was paid. He probably didn't remember, to be honest. Like it's probably fair assessment. He didn't even remember because he's a fucking millionaire. But he was paid $124,000 by the Icelandic Chamber of Commerce to write a paper that said, "You're doing great. No one should be worried. Everyone should keep buying things and investing in your economy." Cool. The fundamentals of the economy are strong. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Exactly.
On your CV, the title of this report has been changed from Financial Stability in Iceland to Financial Instability in Iceland.
Oh, well, I don't know wherever.
Let's go back there.
On your CV, the title of this report has been changed from Financial Stability in Iceland to Financial Instability.
So, the report, what he did was, he wrote this report. He was paid $124,000 to write it. That said, line gonna go up. It's going up. It's gonna keep going up. There's no reason to be concerned. Everybody, keep investing your monies. Trust me, I am big brain. I know stonks. I know line goes up. I know economies. Okay. Financial stability in Iceland. What he did was, oh shit, financial stability in Iceland, writing this report in 2006, it doesn't mesh well with a crash that happened in 2008. So what I'm just going to do, I'm going to take my CV, my curriculum vitae, my resume, and I'm going to just put instability on it. I'm going to make it look like, because no one's going to read this fucking dog shit after the fact. I'm going to make it look like I predicted it, actually. I don't want that stain on my CV. How could I won't want that. Let's just put 2 letters in the front. What's the big deal?
Stability in Iceland.
Oh, well, I don't know. Whatever it is the thing. If it's a typo, there's a typo.
I think what should be publicly available is whenever anybody does research on a topic that they disclose if they have any financial conflict with that research.
But if I recall, there is no policy to that effect.
I can't imagine anybody not doing that. In terms of putting it in a paper, there would be significant professional sanction.
Oh my goodness, it would be so uncouth academically to not disclose your financial. I mean, let me play devil's advocate here for a minute. So he may be right. He might be like, I don't need to disclose that necessarily because I don't see it as a conflict of interest because everyone is doing that in my field. Everyone who is at the Columbia School of Business is being paid to write these papers that are lies by idiots like me who don't understand how the economy works, but I have the credentials that say that I do. I am directly incentivized to lie about this. I am directly incentivized to be the dolt in this position. They need the dolt that is me in this position to keep saying these things. The person who is willing to say these things gets this position. I mean, he might not be lying to himself even. He might be that fucking stupid. He might be that obtuse to not understand that because he is the perfect amount of dumb, he is dumb in the exact right way, he is the perfect peg to fit into this position. Because these schools are propped up by the same institutions. All of these people who graduate from these schools are hoping to go work for those companies that he is saying are good investments and should be deregulated.
To do that.
I didn't see any place in the study where you indicated that you had been paid by the Icelandic Chamber of Commerce to produce it.
No, I don't,
Okay.
Richard Portis.
Okay, let's watch that again. I want to watch this part again.
In terms of putting it in a paper, there would be significant professional sanction for failure to do that.
I didn't see any place in the study where you indicated that you had been paid by the Icelandic Chamber of Commerce to produce it.
No, I don't,
Okay.
Richard. His answer is no, I don't, the director just moves on too. He's just like, oh, okay, this guy. I think he actually starts to feel bad for him. Like this idiot is totally unprepared for, like he actually might be coming to terms with the reality that he is responsible for this.
Portis, the most famous economist in Britain, and a professor at London Business School, was also commissioned by the Icelandic Chamber of Commerce in 2007 to write a report which praised the Icelandic financial sector.
The banks themselves are highly liquid. They've actually made money on the fall of the Icelandic krona. These are strong banks. Their funding, their market funding is assured for the coming year. These are well-run banks. Richard, thank you so much.
Like Mishkin, Portis's report didn't disclose his payment from the Icelandic Chamber of Commerce.
Does Harvard require disclosures of financial conflict of interest in publications?
I forgot about this guy. This is like the sweatiest British pedophile I've ever seen. Well, you see, this fucking pencil neck twerp is absolutely just absolutely dangled here.
Not to my knowledge.
Do you require people to report the compensation they've received from outside activities?
No.
Don't you think that's a problem?
I don't see why.
Martin Feldstein being on the board of AIG, Laura Tyson going on the board of Morgan Stanley, Larry Summers making $10 million a year consulting to financial services firms. Irrelevant.
Yeah, basically irrelevant.
You've written a very large number of articles about a very
Why do
wide
they
array of
all look
subjects.
like a specific type of ghoul? Like that guy is sweaty British pedophile. This is Inside Job from 2010 and prison labor. You should watch it. This guy looks just like Dick Cheney. They all look like a specific type of ghoul.
You never saw fit to investigate the risks of unregulated credit default swaps?
I never did.
Same question with regard to executive compensation, the regulation of corporate governance, the effect of political contributions.
I don't know that I would have anything to add to those discussions.
I'm looking at your resume now. It looks to me as if the majority of your outside activities...
Oh shit, is it? Yeah, why isn't it showing? Oh, that's weird. Oh, you know what? Amazon might be blocking it. No, it was not an artistic choice. Yeah, Pro Strimmer, exactly. I rented this movie on Amazon Prime earlier, and I couldn't find the clips on YouTube. So, what? My boss is Jeff Bezos on Twitch. So what he did was, he said, I'm not going to let you just rent something on Amazon and then watch it on Twitch. And then, like, when people get excited about the content that you're bringing to show the system that I benefit from, you know, and they get excited and they do a hype train, and I take half that money, I want all of the money. Because if you don't know, Twitch takes half our money every time you do a sub, a gift sub, or a biddy. They take half of it. So we only get half the money. Jeff Bezos gets the other half. So he's mad. He's big mad that I am watching this on stream right now. But you can't see it. Yeah, they take half, even as a Twitch partner. Like, if you do like tier 2 subs or tier 3 subs, we get more of a percentage of that. Like 60-40 or 70-30. But like tier 1 subbies, they take half of it, which is the vast majority of the income that we generate from the channel. So when you can, you should just donate to us directly. We appreciate it. But you don't get the fun hype stuff either. I get why people do it, because hype is fun. But like, just know that like half your money goes to Bezos. I think he is listening. You're just gonna have to trust. Okay, we're gonna finish up here in a minute, but you're gonna have to trust my descriptions of what's happening on the screen, okay? Because you're only gonna be able to hear it. Yeah, this is Twitch TOS ASMR. If I whisper, they can't be mad at me about it. All right.
Are consulting and directorship arrangements with the financial services industry. Would you not agree with that characterization?
No, to my knowledge, I don't think my consulting clients are even on my CV, so no.
Who are your consulting clients?
I don't believe I have to discuss that with you.
Okay.
It's getting mad.
Jack, you have a few more minutes and the interview's over.
Do you consult for any financial services firms?
I was whispering, so Jeff Bezos didn't hear. He's my boss technically at Twitch. So like the Twitch people might be listening. So if we whisper to each other, they can't hear us. All right.
The answer is I do. But I do not want to go into details about that.
Do they include other financial services firms?
Possibly.
You don't remember?
This isn't a deposition, sir. I was polite enough to give you time. Foolishly, I now see. But you have 3 more minutes.
Let's go. So I think what happened here is, now I have to guess because I don't know. They don't disclose this during the documentary, but DMC ASMR. God damn it, Gumbo Living. Yeah, DMC ASMR. Yeah, so like what I think happened was the director may have paid these guys to show up. Or he lied to them and say, we want you to big brain business for us on camera. We want you to explain how big brain business works so that us small brain peons can understand. And then these guys were like, wait, are you trying to hold me account for the horrible things that we've done? What the fuck? But he's saying, I can't believe I gave you my time. I can't believe I'm giving you my time. And you would dare try to hold me to account. I've only agreed. I am a man of my word, sir. So you have 3 more minutes of time before this interview is over. Okay?
Give it your best shot.
In 2004, at the height of the bubble,
he tells him to give it his best shot. I wish you could see his face, too.
Glenn Hubbard co-authored a widely read paper with William C. Dudley.
Okay, Glenn Hubbard is the guy who was just talking, who said, give it your best shot. This is, now Matt Damon is telling us about one of the studies he authored.
Chief economist of Goldman Sachs. In the paper, Hubbard praised credit derivatives and the securitization chain, stating that they had improved allocation of capital and were enhancing financial stability. He cited reduced volatility in the economy and stated that recessions had become less frequent and milder. Credit derivatives were protecting banks against losses and helping to distribute risk.
So remember what I was talking about earlier? How CDOs, credit debt obligations, that big massive debt, all the mortgages and student loans and all that shit put together, credit card debt smashed together. He's saying, well, if you think about it, that's actually spreading out risk because more people own the debt. So if it goes on, if someone can't pay, then it's part of a greater instrument which will compensate for that one person not being able to pay. But that only works if the whole thing isn't rotten to the core. Every bit of that debt is subject to cascading effects of an economic downturn, especially when those individual pieces of debt are predatory loans that people never could pay back on adjustable rate mortgages that you need to be an MIT mathematician to understand what your monthly payment would be.
A medical researcher writes an article saying, to treat this disease, you should prescribe this drug. Turns out doctor makes 80% of personal income from manufacture of this drug. Does not bother you.
I think it's certainly important to disclose well, I think that's also a little different from cases that we're talking about here because
he's literally gulping right now. Now it says the presidents of Harvard University and Columbia University refused to comment on the academic conflicts of interest. Okay. Let's go back this way to just me. It's just us talking now, chat. No more Matt Damon in the middle. So, to recap, episode 2 of You Don't Know Dick. Line go down. A breakdown of the 2008 financial crisis. It wasn't displaying because I was watching it on Amazon Prime Video because I rented it earlier. So Amazon Prime Video, because Amazon owns Twitch, has a direct plug-in, I guess, which prevents videos that you rent or buy from even displaying on Twitch when you stream, because they don't want you streaming things for free. I could watch the whole movie on stream that way. They're preventing them from having to do a DMCA takedown after the fact. I didn't know that was a thing. You can see the subtitles, but you can't see the picture. I don't even know how that works. Yeah, no more Amazon documentaries. You can watch YouTube. Apparently the whole movie is on YouTube too, so I could have just went there, but like I did the right thing and like rented the movie through Amazon earlier because that was like the cheap. It was like $2.99. It was like $3.99 on YouTube. So I rented it on Amazon because it was cheaper, and I can't show it, even the clips I wanted to praise the movie that I bought on stream so that I could show you guys about it, and maybe even you guys would get excited about some of the content I was producing, give us money, of which Bezos would take half. So, I mean, I don't understand where he's getting paid on every end of that equation. I guess I don't understand what the problem is. But yeah, that's what I get for doing it. Oh, I should be whispering. I'm sorry, guys. Listen, here's what happened. Yeah, it's Freddyphobia, exactly. They saw my very Italian name when I rented it. They got mad. Let's recap. In 2008, the housing market collapsed because predatory lenders were giving people mortgages who couldn't afford to pay for them. Not only that, but they were given mortgages that no one could understand how much their actual payment would be required month to month, because there were adjustable rates based on some inane, arcane calculation that existed in a black box somewhere that literally a mathematician couldn't figure out how it would have to be solved and paid. So when the cascading effects of all this debt obligations smashed together, when one person couldn't pay, the prices of other houses, the value of other houses went down. Those people also started defaulting because their adjustable rate mortgages went up. All of that debt failed. And then the insurance agencies who had insured the debt, which investors had bought, also couldn't pay because they were also insolvent for all of the obligations that they had to pay for that. The system collapsed in on itself. Everyone who was involved, there was no repercussions for them. In fact, a bunch of them were hired by the Obama administration after the fact. After Obama paid billions of dollars and made the federal government pay billions of dollars to bail them out because they were too big to fail, because it very likely would have caused a Great Depression, the cascading effects would have been even worse. He then hired those people who caused the problem to work in his administration. And we're back there now. Yeah, they got away scot-free. Fredophobes United, I almost missed your show. Always here for you, though. Fredophobes United, you are by definition not there for me, okay? How dare you? All right, we're going to end the stream there, chat. I appreciate you guys coming by for Ep 2 of You Don't Know Dick. Line go down. This has been a good time. I'm really enjoying doing the show. We're going to do it every week on Monday afternoon around this time. Uh-oh. Stop. Oh, Marcus. Marcus is here. Marcus, do you just want to take over? Yes. Okay. So we're not going to raid out. Marcus is going to take over. Because Marcus has some other content that he wants to share. Marcus, I will keep it up. I know you're watching. Yeah, I'm rating in, not rating out. I'm rating in. This is it. We're incepting Left Flank. We're going from big dick hours to big brain Marcus hours, okay? Marcus is going to be covering There is, I forget what he said earlier he was going to covering. When am I getting my Jeep State tattoo? I don't know. When I get a vaccine from Corona, maybe? Marcus, I'm looking at your Signal chat right now so we can coordinate this. Marcus is going to send a Skype. He's going to hop in with me. And we're going to turn over to him. Stand by, chat. Well, he says, I need to vamp. I need to dance. No, we'll pull up a, here's a short video. I was gonna do some Reddit stonks real quick. Really want tattoos to ruin my beautiful olive skin. Thanks, Bonafide. Fucking bastard. Yes, it was this beautiful olive skin you're looking at. This was bathed in the beautiful sunlight of Tuscany. All right, that's how this came about. Tahini skin, you fuckers. Now you know what we'll do? We'll watch Lux Has War flashbacks right quick. You guys ready?
This is the end, my only friend, the end.
Yeah, it's the lighting.
The end of everything that stands, the end. No safety or surprise.
Follow Abby on YouTube, you guys. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a like, Abby. Here, I'm gonna put your. Here's the link to Abby's channel on the YouTube, so you guys go follow Abby. She's got some dope content. She produced that off the cuff the other night while we were talking shit. It was awesome. Because Lux looks like she's going through fucking flashbacks. Well, oh, I got a Skype. Hold on, you guys. We're coming back to me while I figure this shit out. Yeah, my skin looks paper white because I have a light in front of me over here. And there's no light behind me anymore. I think that's what it is. I don't have a very good lighting setup. Marcus, can you hear me?
Yeah.
What up, dude?
Not much. Just yeah. So what I wanted to strem is a discussion panel from Berkeley, queer approaches to transnational carcerality. And basically, what does that mean? Well, they're going into what are the roles of queer and trans people play in the international carceral apparatus, so i.e. prisons.
Damn.
So yeah. There was someone I met Saturday, this guy Dylan, who is a professor at UC Riverside, but he's going to be on it, and he's like, oh, hey, this is going to be, be on this thing. And I was like, oh, man, that sounds fucking awesome. I was like, I want to watch that shit, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to force other people to watch it, too.
Yeah, it's good content, man.
Yeah.
Dope. It starts in 15 minutes,
on that Berkeley
right?
dime. What's up? Oh, yeah, 15 minutes.
You know what's funny?
So
there's a weird tie in here. So I'm glad Berkeley's doing this because obviously this is going to critique the international. I hope it's going to critique the international carceral state and specifically.
Yes, it will for sure. Yes, yeah.
Well, we were just covering how the economics profession is deeply corrupt, and the education of economics as well, by the financial sector. And in fact, there was a woman who's on like the board of UC Berkeley, who is also like on the board of like MetLife and shit. You know?
Oh yeah. Yes, for sure. Libs, bro. Libs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Berkeley is a famous lib institution, but that means that they might get some like identity shit like this correct. How they might see the intersectionality between, trans people, a very marginalized community, and how that intersects with the criminal justice system. We were also discussing on the stream, Marcus, I don't know if you saw this. I know you're probably in and out, but about how I would love a criminal justice system which punishes the powerful Wall Street executives who are directly responsible for the extraction of wealth from the lower class, as opposed to the carceral system that we have now, which is very effective at punishing people who have no power and are in fact already marginalized.
Oh yeah.
Would be nice.
Oh yeah. I mean that like that's where it's like I am a prison abolitionist. I think that for one, meeting material conditions, to meeting health conditions, are two like probably like the biggest way to like tamp down on crime.
Mm-hmm.
But then like all after that, I guess whatever portion of the population that is left over that is like a danger, to society, then like we'll figure something else out other than what the fuck we have going on right now. Like at the end of the day, I don't give a shit what the fucking answer is. I know what it's not.
Yeah, exactly. What we currently have is not the answer. We can figure that out. Like, we can.
Which, and it really too. It's just like there's just so much of the what that goes on, and like why people get arrested and incarcerated. That's just not a reason, right? Whether it's mental health, whether it's economic factors. Like we could say, oh hey, they're like pretty much everybody in here, right? Under different conditions in your life, you would not be in here. And then okay, so there's going to be some other people that, they probably believe like would end up in some type of healthcare institution. And like that seems like I don't know what the right answer is to that. Obviously, like the current healthcare, in being institutionalized now is no fucking dream. But I don't know. Yeah, all of that, right?
Yes, sir. Well, I'm glad that you are doing this, my friend. I gotta hop off and go do dinners. Are you ready to switch over now, or do you need a minute still?
No, I'm good.
Dope. Do we want to count it down and me hit end and you start like we could do normally?
Yeah.
All right. So last time what we tried to do was when I hit end, you had like already been trying to start, but then or the opposite. You were ending and I was starting, and it didn't work because I tried to preempt it. So I think we had to do it like almost at the same time. Like when I on 3, I'll hit it. I will say 1, 2, 3, go, and I'll end it on 3, and then go is when you should hit live, I think.
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
All right, chat. If this gets fucked up, all you got to do is hit refresh, and Marcus will appear, and he will be doing his stream. Thank you for joining me for episode 2 of You Don't Know Dick. I appreciate you. Now, please stick around and watch Marcus cover this panel at UC Berkeley. All right, you ready?
Yep.
1, 2,